No movement day, ah, lockdown day, family day. Well, this is the only live talk show of its kind on radio in Jamaica. On The Rock, we discuss all sides of a topical issue that seems to have the church, its congregants, and society as a whole thinking about the truths found in the Bible, causing believers and unbelievers to consider and or reconsider the things they've heard, studied, believed, or read, causing churches to open or restart discussions on issues very often glossed over. Well, on the rock, we're real, and sometimes we even rock the boat, but at the end of the day, we use the Bible and constantly ask the question, what does the Bible say? This is a discussion where all views contend but may not stand the what does the Bible say test. This is not a debate nor dictatorship. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, where we stream live, and welcome to those joining us via the Love 101 FM app, downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. So, welcome to those of you tuning in via the Love 101 Facebook page and our YouTube channel. We hear that we are to forgive and to forget. Who told us that? The Bible? Forgiving and forgetting is great in theory, but in reality, well, is that even humanly possible? Is that even biblical? Forgiving and forgetting. That's the topic today. Think about it while I share with you some things that I have on my mind. And of course, not much happening, not much on my mind, but to talk about a few things. Firstly, COVID 19, this pandemic, I believe, needs to be put to the thoughts and minds of Jamaicans in a very serious, serious way. Why? Because right now, I'm still being told by people I go to visit that there is no such thing as COVID, that the COVID vaccine is a killer and not the COVID. And people talk about all the things they've heard without understanding the facts. Now, I'm not the person who is trained to give you all the facts, but I want to just say one more time that this is a very, very, very serious time. For me personally, I'm pretty surprised we're only home Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, because I think we've got to get to that point where we really, really, really take this thing seriously. I'm looking at videos of all the events that took place in the last month, and all the parties, and I'm saying to myself, we're crazy. We're crazy. I'm looking at the lines. Now, yesterday, I went to the vaccination centers and had a look. Encourage a few people to go there, encourage a few people to have the vaccine. But what surprised me, trust me, people were standing in the lines like 6 inches apart, not even 6 feet apart. Something wrong with that picture. You go through a gate and somebody's putting um, solutions and alcohol and everything on your hand, and then you go in a line and you're just there standing up beside people as if, woo, no COVID. Something is wrong. Something is just wrong with our mentality. Go to the bank on Saturday. The lines are the same way. And somehow my question is a very serious question. From the government down to the people on the street. When do we take this thing seriously? Why do I say government? Because the bus transportation system has people sitting beside each other. The, even our planes have people sitting beside each other. So there's no consistency in what we are doing compared to what we're saying. If we believe that this thing is serious and we believe that we want to discontinue the growth of it in our country and around the world, some action needs to be taken by everybody. Those of you traveling know that the airlines are all full. They're not sending in enough planes. They don't want to lose money. And they're making us all sit together, just like the buses, just like the taxis. Every rule is being broken somewhere, somehow, somewhere. And I'm saying something is wrong with this picture. Now, talking about this picture, when I looked yesterday on the news coming to my phone, almost 900 people acquired COVID the day before, or at least for the reports. Now, that's from what they said, that's a record number Um, however they said it, however they meant it. I'm going to say something that you've never heard before. Last year, I came on after I went to my church this Sunday, and I said to my church, I believe that COVID is airborne. The prognosticators were saying, no, it is not airborne. And I just was praying, and I hear it's airborne. 2 weeks later, I'm hearing the scientists say it's airborne. Um, Now I'm going to say this for Jamaica. The Delta variant is here. It moves faster. It kills quicker. Now, if we're seeing 100 plus, 150 serious to critical condition people in the hospitals, listen to me, Jamaica. Hospital rooms are being full, are full. Um, Look for more people to die. So we no longer have one, two, and three deaths for the day. We're now at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I'm saying to somebody, somehow, um, please, 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 um, watch yourself. Watch yourself. All right. If you're staying at your yard, stay at your yard. If you go on the road, wear your mask, keep your social distance, and most importantly, talk to your children because I've been around some families and I'm seeing people with their hands all over their mouth, all over their face, and children especially with all kind of things. You go in the supermarket and you buy something, somebody's hands have been all over that maybe 10 times already. Please, please don't tell yourself that they have their hands sanitized at the door. Their hands been in their mouth, in their nose, in their ears, in their eyes, all over, and they're giving you what they have. As a result, it says here that countries like the UK are looking to the possibility of putting Jamaica on the red list. According to several media reports, Jamaica, St. Lucia, and Dominica are all at risk of being added to the red list, which would see visitors from these countries needing to quarantine in a hotel for 10 days and take at least two COVID-19 tests upon arrival in the UK. Jamaica. Somehow, I gotta speak what is in my spirit. Secondly, I was talking with somebody about water just the other day, and I want to say to Jamaicans, you don't know what you have. You know, some places in the world wish they had water like how we have water, or nice river, springs, and everything that produces the water that we drink. And somehow we continue to mess with the environment. I believe it's time that the government has somebody fully responsible for the Jamaican environment. I know it's only a small pie in the big picture, but Jamaicans need to take care of our garbage, need to take care of our environment, need to take care of our rivers, need to take care of our gullies. And Steve just has to say so much about that. Finally today, finally today, I can never figure out in a time when COVID's killing 99-year-olds and 80-odd-year-olds that we're still having some crazy young people running around and killing old people. Imagine somebody live all them life, them go through all of Jamaica, travel the world, or whatever they've done. Maybe they've never left them little community, and they're there in their house, and somebody has to go in there and kill them. Now the story in the Gleaner: 81-year-old retired chef Norman Campbell of Goshen found unresponsive with a wound to the head on Sunday. When is this going to end? When is respect for life going to return to Jamaica? When are we going to care about that breath that money can't buy? Somebody paying you $5,000, somebody paying you $2,000. Something wrong, man. And we tend to forget the way we live is the same way we're going to die. Somebody going to knock you upside your head, we would say abroad in Cayman, we can knock you upside your head. If you can knock people in the head, kill them, something is wrong with that, man. It just pains me that somebody lived for 81 years and their life just goes like that. All that experience, all that knowledge, all the ability that they have left to care for a grandchild, to still make a difference, gone like the wind. Oh boy, I don't know. At some point in time, I may have to change my name to Marcus Garvey. and start fighting the Marcus Garvey fight. I mean, I'm already Herro Blair. My father, a great man to me, but I've, I've gotten to that point where I'm still saying to Jamaica, look, folks, we're going to have to fight for the same things that people like Marcus Garvey fight for this country to be the great country it is. Is God really expecting us to forget as well as forgive? Would he be asking the impossible? Would he be asking the impossible, or are we voluntarily going the extra mile? Forgiving and forgetting. That's our topic today. Post all your comments on this topic on our Facebook Live, The Rock Broadcast, or send a WhatsApp message to 876-997-3125. That's 876-997. My wife says she can't, I talk too fast and run past everything, so nobody can't write the number down. 876-997-3125, right? Leave a voice note or write a message. Keep your voice notes about 30 seconds. And of course, we're also asking you, turn your radio down. Our guest today, after we come back from the break, Pastor Napoleon Black and Kari Heron. Should we forgive everything, forget everything? What's the benefit in that? What if we forgive but don't forget? Would it hurt? What does the Bible say? We will be right back here on The Rock. I'm Steve Blair.
St. Mary, yes, where we come from. Oh, yes, it's your week in the Honor of Summer campaign. So this Testimony Tuesday inside the Live 1 to 5, August 24th. Stick around for a great show. Inspirational stories and music. Join us at 2 o'clock with For a Blast. At 2:15 inside the evidence, we hear the conversion testimony of Apostle Richard Gordon, who got involved with guns and gangs at a tender age. But today he has been delivered and is sold out for Jesus. Then at 3 p.m., we go beyond the pulpit of Pastor Keena Hamilton, who's been preaching since the age of 9. He's the Assistant Dean of Discipline of the Anotabe High School and Associate Pastor at the New Covenant Ministries International in St. Mary. All this and more will come alive with the family station, Love 101.
You gotta make wellness your way. Make it your habit each day. Gotta do it for you. Gotta do it for
Come follow me now. A little more walk, little run, little more exercise. Eat right, sleep tight, good health at the price. Make time for yourself, friends and family. Make a plan, get protection. That's the key. Financially, physically, and mentally. Wellness be a free. Sagicor and me. Visit the Sagicor Wellness Hub at sagicor.com.
Make it your habit each day. Gotta do it for you. Gotta do it for you.
And that's it.
How you know your way around the computer, so?
Look like a pro, not true. And I learned these skills for free through the Flow Foundation.
How will you say?
Start up the Skills for the Future program that's in partnership with the Caribbean School of Data. Their basic digital skills course opened a world of opportunities for me.
Is it still available?
Yeah, man, and you can learn in no time.
Take control of your future for free. Register online at flowfoundationja.org.
2021 high school graduates across Jamaica. Be a part of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information's groundbreaking sixth form pathway program at the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, UCC, and benefit from free tuition for 2 years for most programs. Through this sixth form program, high school graduates can transition to grade 12 to earn an associate degree or other vocational certifications after grade 13. Then, if you wish, seamlessly complete your UCC bachelor's degree in just 2 more years. Visit ucc.edu.jm for details or call us at 876-906-3000. UCC, fostering leadership and innovation.
Exporters, have you heard? Certificates of origin are now online. Starting August 23, 2021, all exporters requiring a certificate of origin from the Trade Board Limited must submit their application using the Jamaica Single Window for Trade, J-SWIFT. All locally manufactured goods and agricultural produce for export must have an authorized certificate of origin in order to access and obtain preferential treatment in other territories and markets. Traders, your benefits include greater convenience and faster processing time, online application, payment and approval, online access to the approved certificate of origin, and a system-generated CARICOM invoice. For more details, contact J-SWIFT at info@jswift.gov.jm. Jamaica Single Window for Trade. J-SWIFT, your window to trade.
Eat what you grow, grow what you eat.
Banana bread, banana milkshake, banana chips, banana, and more bananas from its main production source, St. Mary. Tune in this Tuesday inside From the Farmer's Mouth as we catch up with a banana farmer from the parish of, you heard, St. Mary. This Tuesday, August 24 at 5:30 p.m., we'll chat with Stephen Amrit, commercial banana farmer for over 10 years. We'll talk up all things banana and more. From the Farmer's Mouth, this Tuesday, August 24, right here on the family station, Love 101.
Just a lot of losses, spend money and I make it back. No.
Oh my gosh, guess what? We're at the next stop of the I Love Summer Tour,
St.
Mary! St. Mary!
Well, good morning. Welcome back. I want to just tell you before I go into my script. Yes, all that my producer has written. That's the lovely Kathy Gale. But I want to tell you, the topic today, as I was praying last night about this program, I felt I'm going to open the phone lines early. Now, I know sometimes you have an issue getting through, but I'm going to beg you. I've asked the Lord to inspire you to call in because I want you to call and talk about issues you've had. And I want you to also help our guests and myself to help others, all right? So, on the Rock today, we're discussing the topic, forgiving and forgetting. What's your take on all of this? So, post your comments on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, live, and also on our WhatsApp, 997-3125, using the hashtag The Rock. Voice notes must be no more than 30 seconds. And of course, turn your radio down so we can hear your voice and not mine. We'll share your messages throughout the program. Prepare to call in. Yes, like I said, I'm looking for you to call in. On the show today, our guests, Pastor Napoleon Black and Carrie Herron. Carrie is a disciple of Christ, mom to one amazing child, entrepreneur, master coach and mentor, leadership expert, strategist, and content queen on a mission to lead a full, meaningful, and purposeful life. She speaks life and love, calling for dormant and dead gifts in us to arise. By the way, that was my sermon on Sunday. Stir up your gifts. Pastor Black, my good friend, was trained at the Jamaica Theological Seminary. He's a regular presenter on Love 101 marriage support radio program to have and to hold. He's a writer with 3 published works, the most recent being Light Afflictions. He's a lecturer at the tertiary level, an international speaker, a marriage counselor, marriage officer, life coach and trainer, and a seminar presenter. Pastor Napoleon Black and wife Anita Black have been married for 33 years, have 2 grown children and 2 grandchildren. Welcome today, my guests, Carrie and Napoleon. Reverend Black, how are you, son?
Yeah, man.
Carrie, you look lovely.
Thank you.
I wish all the listeners on the radio could see how bright you are and that lovely purple royal outfit you have on, and Pastor Black's nice African shade shirt.
Can't help
This is also African. I think we all have this kind of African motif going on, even with the shirts too.
Maybe I need to go and change.
It looks like an African print.
Yes, it looks nice. Thank you so much. Lady and gentlemen, today, forgive and forget. Is that possible? I know we will talk for another hour and a half, but just give me your opening statement for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes each. I'll start with you, Carrie.
Oh, Lord, I mean, forgive and forget. When Kathy asked me this question, your producer, I was like, and that's because it's funny about this whole forgiveness thing, because at the root of what God wants from us and what God gives to us is forgiveness. He offers forgiveness of our sins through the sacrificial love, that Jesus, an act that Jesus did on the cross. He gave his only son to die for us so that we could be forgiven of our sins. And in doing so, become one with him, become children of God through forgiveness. So forgiveness is God's gift to us through love. And so it is a fundamental part of who we are as Christians, and who what it is that God has called us to. And I think that's one also, because of it's such a fundamental part of who we are and what we're called to. It's also one of the major areas that we also have to grapple with in terms of humanity.
Yes. So a lot of people, Pastor Black,
bruised as a result of that.
Oh, sorry, you pause forward. Go ahead. Carrie?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Pastor Black, a lot of people tell me that they struggle with forgiveness, much more forgiving and forgetting, especially for someone like you in the marriage business. That's something a lot of people tell me that they struggle with.
Yeah. Forgiveness perhaps is among the highest of the human ideals. That willingness to see ourselves as frail, as in need of that space of relationship, but in that space, knowing that there's always that thing that is going to go wrong, that thing that is going to mess up, and then that disposition to say, listen, I am not going to be bitter against you because of it. I'm not going to be resentful towards it because of it. I'm still going to affirm your dignity as a human being in spite of it, and treat you as I would any other human being, even though perhaps I have every reason and every right to be angry and bitter and resentful. Forgiveness is that capacity to see the other person in that kind of light. Forgetting is a whole nother ball game, and I don't think it is a biblical requirement at all that we should forget in that sense. I tend more to see the miracle of still remembering and still being able to deal with, to relate to somebody who has done wrong.
Yes, that whole thing. I like what you just said. You said you don't believe it is a biblical requirement, but biblically we're encouraged to forgive, even in the Lord's Prayer.
Absolutely.
And I find a lot of people struggle with that issue of forgiving.
But the idea of forgiving and forgetting,
Yes.
I think it's unnatural.
Yeah.
Somebody shoots down my son in the road and I don't remember it. I don't know how possible that is. Impossible. So it is perhaps being able to remember, but to remember with a difference. I think that's more the concept rather than just empowering a person to continue their behavior because I forgot about it. I don't think that's what the Bible requires.
Well, Carrie, I don't know if you ever had a conversation with anyone that would say that is something they're trying to do, and they're facing issues just thinking about it.
You mean in terms of forgiveness?
Forgiveness and or forgiving and trying to forget.
Well, yeah, I'm there. I'm there. I mean, it's wonderful that we're having this discussion because I'm there. I don't know which part of what I said got through, but in terms of the forgiving is something that we're called to do because it is important in terms of our healing. It's important in terms of being able to give that to God to not hang on to things, to do all of that. But then you also have situations where people are willfully, when you have situations where people are willfully like doing things in order. It's one thing to forgive somebody who it's an accident. Somebody hit you and it was literally an accident. It's another thing when somebody literally has an agenda and shoots an attack, plans an attack, premeditates and executes an attack against you, and then you're to forgive that. But yes, I've had that because I have gone through a divorce. And in the process of that, one thing was you have a marriage that starts off well, friendship and all those things. And then in the process of the dissolution of the marriage, then what you have is something completely different where, people change. And as a result, the behaviors change. And you cannot control other people.
Yes.
And so it's impossible for you to impose what you want on somebody else, or even the way you want to go about things. But what's important in this process, and I'm talking about myself, is really taking it to God all the time.
Okay, we're gonna leave it there.
Even
We're
in
gonna
the
come back
times
to
when
it.
I cannot, and being honest with
We're gonna leave it there and come right back to that discussion after the break. We're gonna talk about that specifically because right now we're getting ready for the news on love at 10:30. You're listening to and viewing, if you're on Facebook and YouTube, you're listening to The Rock. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Blair.
Introduced in association with Jamaica's first digital media house, My Jamaica Today, only 3 clicks away, and presented by Love 101 FM, the family station. The mid-morning news update is brought to you today by Jamaica Customs Agency, country above self.
Exporters, have you heard? Certificates of origin are now online. Starting August 23, 2021, all exporters requiring a certificate of origin from the Trade Board Limited must submit their application using the Jamaica Single Window for Trade, J-SWIFT. All locally manufactured goods and agricultural produce for export must have an authorized certificate of origin in order to access and obtain preferential treatment in other territories and markets. Traders, your benefits include greater convenience and faster processing time, online application, payment, and approval, online access to the approved certificate of origin, and a system-generated CARICOM invoice. For more details, contact J-SWIFT at info@jswift.gov.jm. Jamaica Single Window for Trade. J-SWIFT, your window to trade.
Now the news. Education Minister pleased with vaccination blitz. Over 16,000 more Jamaican children were reportedly vaccinated yesterday. And Education Minister Favour Williams has said she's pleased with the take-up of the Pfizer vaccine among the nation's children and their parents. The Education Ministry is seeking to vaccinate 90,000 children ahead of the start of the new school term in September, as students attending face-to-face classes are required to be inoculated. Police maintaining lockdown compliance. The police say they are maintaining a strong presence on the streets to ensure all-round compliance with the lockdown measures. According to Deputy Superintendent Delia Garrick, the police have heightened their presence in the corporate area and have set up strategic checkpoints to ensure enforcement and adherence to the Disaster Risk Management Act. Prime Minister Andrew Holness last Thursday announced 7 days of no movement during a period of 3 weeks, with this being the first week of the lockdown ending at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. 100 houses to be built for the indigent. Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Desmond McKenzie, says the government is intensifying efforts to deliver 100 indigent houses during the 2021-22 fiscal year. According to the minister, the program will commence in West Central St. Andrew, then move to Southwest St. Andrew, Central Kingston, West Kingston, and other constituencies across the island, as well as the parish of St. Mary, where a significant number of houses will be built. Minister McKenzie was speaking at a groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of housing in Bell Rock, South St. Andrew recently. Tourism Minister sends condolences. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett has extended condolences to the family and friends of the American tourist who died from COVID-19 complications at the Cornwall Regional Hospital yesterday. 34-year-old Kaijundra Davis died 24 hours after she was transferred from the Noel Holmes Hospital in Lucy. It's understood that she was 3 months pregnant and suffered from comorbidity. Taliban warns of consequences if foreign troops stay past deadline. The U.S. is being pressed by allies to delay its withdrawal from Afghanistan to allow more time for evacuating those who want to flee the country now that it is run by Taliban militants. The UK is hosting a G7 summit, warning not everyone will get out. The Taliban, in the meantime, have warned of consequences if foreign forces remain after the deadline agreed with the U.S. New York's vaccination mandate. Officials have said all New York City public school teachers and other staffers will have to get vaccinated against the coronavirus. This as a means of ramping up pandemic protection as the U.S. largest school system prepares for classes to start next month. And finally, on a sporting note, Akeem Auguste made the most excellent batting conditions to record a sparkling century as the West Indies Rising Stars Under-19 high-performance camp continued this past weekend. Auguste played a captain's knock of 104 to lead his team 270 all out. They then bowled out the team led by Giovante De Pesa for 227 to win by 43 runs at the Coolidge Cricket Compound on Sunday. And those are the stories on your watch list in your mid-morning news update, written and produced in association with Jamaica's first digital media house, My Jamaica Today, only 3 clicks away, and presented by Love 101 FM, the family station. I'm Durable Graham, thanking you for listening. You have a safe and productive day.
Thank you so much for listening to our mid-morning news updates brought to you by Jamaica Customs Agency.
Exporters, have you heard? Certificates of origin are now online. Starting August 23, 2021, all exporters requiring a certificate of origin from the Trade Board Limited must submit their application using the Jamaica Single Window for Trade, J-SWIFT. All locally manufactured goods and agricultural produce for export must have an authorized certificate of origin in order to access and obtain preferential treatment in other territories and markets. Traders, your benefits include greater convenience and faster processing time, online application, payment and approval, online access to the approved certificate of origin, and a system-generated CARICOM invoice. For more details, contact J-SWIFT at info@jswift.gov.jm. Jamaica Single Window for Trade. J-SWIFT, your window to trade.
Let's build strong bonds. Take advantage of the NCB Financial Group Limited bond offer with a minimum investment of 100,000 Jamaican dollars attracting 6% interest per annum paid semi-annually. Don't let this wealth opportunity pass you by. Offer opens August 13 and closes September 2. Text the bond to 876-383-2076 or email multi-channel NCB Capital Markets at jncb.com to get started. Start building generational wealth today. Conditions apply.
Take control of your future with free online training through the Flow Foundation. Access certified courses in social media management, finance, big data analytics, and more for free in partnership with one-on-one educational services. Over 100 online courses with expert guidance will help you unlock job opportunities or grow your business better. Take control of your future for free. Register online at flowfoundationja.org.
Are you importing a used vehicle from the USA, UK, Japan, Singapore, or the UAE? Please be reminded that all used vehicles, including equipment such as backhoes, excavators, forklifts, riding lawnmowers, and trailers, must be sanitized before importation. Contact Auto Terminal Japan at www.inspections.jp for pre-shipment inspection details. A message from the Trade Board Limited.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Blair, and we're going to talk the things today. Yes, if there's a topic that you'd like to discuss, or even a topic that has the church on different sides of the fence, let us know. And if you have the spiritual passion, knowledge, and background, and would like to be considered as a guest on the program, please let us know. Today, we're talking about forgiving and forgetting. Post all your comments on our Facebook Live and YouTube Live broadcasts of The Raw, or send us a WhatsApp message to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Rock. Also, you can leave your voice note. Keep that voice note to about 30 to 40 seconds. Turn your radio down and talk something that will benefit both the program and the nation. Well, joining us, as they did earlier, are two guests today, Carrie and Pastor Black. And I want to say welcome back to our special guests as we talk about the issues being faced. So we're talking about forgiving and forgetting. Let me give you a quote I just found online. It's a very, very wonderful quote regarding forgiving. It says, "The first to apologize is the bravest. The first to forgive is the strongest. And the first to forget is the happiest." Wow, wow, wow. So how do we help some people to get happy? Carrie, you were talking earlier about your own situation, and I'm glad you're willing to speak, because so many people have things locked up inside of them, and we want to help them to get past it, firstly by forgiving and hopefully by becoming happy in some way. So continue, Carrie, and tell us what was happening with you that made it difficult for you.
You see, repeated infringements on boundaries. When you have boundaries that are not being recognized and acknowledged and respected by other people, then you can't control other people. But what is important is to be able to take accountability for your own self and your own reaction. And in the times when you cannot find somebody, you cannot forgive somebody because the grievance is just so magnanimous and so traumatic, then we really have to take it to God, literally. Like, even if it's like, God, listen to me, I cannot stand, and I cannot even find it in my heart too. And I don't know how. I don't have it within me. I don't have the intention. I'm angry. This thing has violated me. This thing is hurting. Please help me to take this away, because that is what really allows us to be pure and to also maintain life without dying in the process, because unforgiveness is like a slow death. It locks us out from our own healing and deliverance. There many times when you, even in terms of deliverance as well, there's a root of when there's a root of unforgiveness, you can't penetrate, because I've seen it as well in deliverance sessions with people. There's a young man who was on a mission trip in Jordan, and he had decades of unforgiveness towards his father. And it wasn't until he acknowledged that, and even towards God, because of how his father had treated him. And when it was that he actually opened up and confessed that was when he was able to break those walls down, and then healing was able to come in. So that's why I said to you that forgiveness is important, and it's what God calls us to, but it's also what the enemy and life and circumstances will try to cause a roadblock to access the very same thing that we actually need. So
I like the fact that you brought up that example with the father, As a pastor, I'm seeing so many people across Jamaica come and say, Pastor Blair didn't know my father for 25, 30 years, and all of a sudden he's in my life and he wants this, he wants that. Pastor Black, there's so many issues out there where people, young women, young men, are struggling with trying to forgive their very own fathers. There are issues where people in marriages are struggling to forgive. Um, and sometimes, let me make this point for those who are listening. Sometimes the person that we are struggling to forgive does not even want forgiveness because they don't even see anything wrong. But Pastor Black, forgiveness is an act of the will that benefits us, correct?
It does, absolutely. And perhaps as I was in the car, I was just thinking to myself about Jesus. And the first thing that Jesus did hanging there on the cross was, let's say, forgive them. The very, very first thing. But guess what? The fact that he asked that they be forgiven did not take away the pain that he was going through. In fact, as he hung there, the pain intensified. And I think we need to make a distinction between forgiving and dealing with the pain, because they're really two different things. Forgiving is making sure that we are free enough to continue to relate. I'm thinking to myself that it is because Jesus forgave that he was able to have that conversation with those two men, one to his right and the other to his left, or else he would have been so consumed with his own stuff. It was because he was able to forgive in that first instance, why he was able to continue the conversation with his own father. So as I said at the outset, that capacity, that disposition, that willingness to forgive is perhaps among the highest of our ideals as human beings, how we relate with each other. Now, we still have to face the pain. We still have to face the betrayal. We still have to face the abuse. We still have to face community because of some of the things that have been done, especially if we're going to talk a little bit about in the context of marriage. We still have to face those things. But we forgive to free ourselves to be able to continue to relate effectively. We forgive to make sure that as much as we can see clearly to continue to live properly, to function properly. But we still have to work through the process of, of how this pain has impacted me, how this pain has impacted my relationships, and how I now need to deal with and work through the fact that I'm in pain and processing that pain. I see forgiveness more as that event, and then dealing with the effects of the cause of the hurt more as a process.
Rev,
So,
I want to just sidetrack for a second because you're touching something that's very important. If forgiveness is only a part of the healing, then many people who refuse to get help are still bound.
absolutely, absolutely. And I've, in my own practice as a counselor, I've seen scores and scores of people who, especially in the Christian context, we gloss over dealing with our hurts and pains because we're Christians, you know.
So we want to pray about everything,
You understand? We
and
kind
and,
of
and,
we
and, and
kind of
sometimes
aside.
prayer is not the answer.
Ah, it's Jesus maybe, but maybe not for, in the sense that we need to process what's happening to us. We need to admit that we're not in a good place. We need to admit that there's a injury that is affecting us deeply. We sometimes need to take ourselves away from ministry to work through that space and place of hurt and pain. We perhaps might need to take ourselves from the space and place where we've experienced that hurt and betrayal and loss and all of that. Because very often we have this brand of Christianity that you're always swinging in Jesus. We have this brand of Christianity that every day with Jesus is sweeter than the day before, and all of these things that don't normally fit us general Christians who have to live day to day, moment by moment. And unless and until we're willing to unmask, kind of good word in this season, and,
Yes.
and put ourselves out there as we really are, then the authenticity that we're seeking for ourselves and the authenticity that people want to see in us and the authenticity that we want to tell people about that is fundamental to being a Christian is going to be lost.
Do you know?
Go ahead,
Can I
Karen.
say something here?
Go ahead.
I think it's so important. You mentioned authenticity as well, Pastor Black, because there's something there. Vulnerability is a place that we give God to move. You know, when we're closed off and we feel as if, yes, as you said, the Christian needs, we wax out of these things sometimes because it's, it's we sweep it under, sweep the hurt and the pain underneath, but there's this elephant in the room that is probably going through the roof that nobody wants to acknowledge, and we're to walk around it and pretend as if this is because that's part of the problem as well. We have not actually learned through our generations to resolve issues, to talk about issues, to express pain, to process, to say I'm sorry. Even if what you said I have done, I did not mean to cause injury or harm. If you feel injured or harmed by what it is that I have done, I apologize for that. It was not my intention. Whether or not I agree that it should have been grievous is not the point. But that level of, and even in terms of one of the things that is very critical for parents to understand, especially the parents who have kids who may be considered unforgivable, prodigal, or wayward, is the need to, instead of waiting for the child to ask for forgiveness, to go to the child and ask for forgiveness. And that act will break a lot of chains in children who are rebellious, in adults who are rebellious, because there is something there that people are fighting against and rebelling against. And if you can acknowledge whatever I have done to cause you harm, whatever I have done, my child, please forgive me. I'm sorry. The most solid stone-hearted person has to crumble under that, because that's when grace comes in, and we don't know how to humble ourselves to ask for apology. We don't know how to humble. We think that only kids need to, this authority thing. It goes both ways.
I like what you're saying. You talk about humbling ourselves. So let's throw this into a full biblical perspective as we build on this topic. Christianity is demanding upon us. So pride has no place in the life of a Christian. And pride says that person's done me wrong. Pride says I can hold up my nose. Pride says I don't need to talk to them. But Jesus demands that we deny self. Right, Rev? And that denial of self says to us, okay, if your brother or your sister have aught against you, go to them.
Yes.
So there's something that is demanding of us as an individual. And what we're looking at today is so important because we have the issue of forgiveness. We have the issue that Pastor Black brought up in terms of forgiveness being one thing, but come to wholesomeness by getting help and treatment. But for us, though, we've got to say, okay, forget about me. So I like when you use that word humility, and we humble ourselves and we say, Steve was wrong. Steve said something that hurt me. But Rev, let's go to another level now. We also need to have that communication, though we're forgiving.
But perhaps even before we get there, Steve.
All right, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I've heard somebody say, I don't need your forgiveness. In fact, I don't want it.
Ah, yes.
And when in that space of seeking healing to move towards effective communication, there is that block that says, I don't want your forgiveness. It is trampling on a person in a way that it's all but indescribable, because at that place there's really nowhere else to go. If we are refusing to use the stones that are going to help to build the bridge towards understanding and effective communicating and healing and transformation, if I am saying to that person, I don't want your forgiveness, then we have pretty much blocked the process. And the hurt and the alienation and the resentment and the bitterness and the hate and all of those things that are so unhelpful to be inside of us as human beings, those will just perpetuate. The problems will continue and more people get infected by it. Bitterness has a way of planting deep roots, and they don't only affect the person who bears the bitterness, but also how it springs out and spews out on others around. So the entire atmosphere becomes toxic because one person refuses to even accept forgiveness.
This is
And
go
this
ahead.
we see this
Go
in
ahead, Carrie.
we see this in so many families as well.
Yes, yes.
And that's part of the issue, that now that I think as we have evolved, coming out of the history of the enslavement of our people, we're beginning generation from by generation to reclaim the cultural history, the family bond that we have a right to own, right, in terms of our inheritance. And as we get more and more aware of what it is that a healthy family life looks like, then we also have greater demands of our family units. And sometimes you have a cross generational gap where you have older generations who are holding fast to whatever it is that they're holding on to, not recognizing that there has to be a shift in order to move forward, because it's the what we consider to be normal and healthy is actually not necessarily normal and healthy, and
Counterproductive.
we're not necessarily optimal in how we relate to each other, and our families are not breathing full life to each other. And we have to get to a point where we actually can challenge and grow. We can't just be silent because people will not hear it. It's quite narcissistic to preserve things as they are because nobody wants to be challenged, and because it's too hurtful to challenge trauma. But we have to walk through that for all of us to heal. If one person has major trauma, the entire family has it. And so we have to walk through that process together.
And that too is because we have not taught ourselves healthy confrontation. You know, as Christians, we don't know how to talk to each other in a healthy, respectful way, because confrontation is an important and a healthy part of our relationship with each other.
Wow, wow. We're digging deep into the program. Going to our Facebookites, our people on Facebook. Naomi says, "How can one forget? We don't suffer from memory loss. When we remember, it just don't mean anything. But we don't suffer from memory loss, so why forget?" Wow. I mean, the pain, the hurts, the curse words, the attitudes, the things that led to the divorce.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carrie.
I don't necessarily think that we should not forget. We should forget either, because I don't think it's always wise to. You can get to a point where it is no longer causing you to react in any sort of way, where your blood doesn't start to boil and your heart doesn't start to beat, or you don't start to shake, or start to twitch when you hear somebody's name. But I don't think that it's necessarily healthy to forget, especially in the cases of real grievance, real, you have to still have boundaries as well, healthy boundaries. Somebody has done something, has presented themselves to you, has done your injury, continues to do your injury, has not changed. would it be wise to forget that keeps on happening and keep on showing up the same way into that relationship as well? So for that person to still get the same opportunity to do the same grievous harm, what's going to happen? That's how people end up dead in relationships.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily, I don't think that there is, only God says he casts our sins into the sea of forgetfulness. He doesn't ask us to do that, right, Reverend Napoleon Black?
but even then, and I know that God does not have that record of wrongs, but the Bible is a record of our wrongs too, isn't it? The record of Peter's denial remains there, not to be forgotten, but not written as a record against him, but as an expression of God's grace. So the record is not wiped out in the sense that we think of it, but in a sense that it is not something now that the person is going to be judged by, is going to be controlled by, is going to be reminded of in a negative way, is going to be used as a beating stick over that person. But we recognize those realities for what they are. And I insist that the greater miracle is not that we forget. The greater miracle is that we're able to remember those injuries, and the blood don't boil, and the heart don't race, and all of those negative things don't come back at the mention of that person's name.
Well, we're going to a break. When we come back, we will look further at the thought of forgetting. Yes. Is it possible? Is it beneficial? Where does the mind go with all of this thing? Somebody listening maybe you've gone through some really terrible, horrible abuse. Wow. And you just hear people say, forget it, forgive. We're going to talk further. This is The Rock. We'll be right back.
Time 11:01. It is 11 o'clock.
A Moment for Parents, brought to you by Parenting Jamaica, a program of the I Believe initiative.
Parenting is the most difficult job in the world. Thankfully, Parenting Jamaica has some tips to help you do a better job. Here's one. Can you remember how much you anticipated witnessing your baby's first word? The men hoping it would be dada, and we women praying that they say mama? But it wasn't any of those, was it? Babies are born clean slates. To help develop their speech and language skills, parents must interact with them. Talk to them, respond to their cooing and babbling, read them bedtime stories, sing to them. You'd be surprised how soon you'll be searching for a mute button. To find out more about parenting style, visit the Parenting Jamaica blog at parentingjamaica.com or follow us on Twitter at parentingjam.
A Moment for Parents was brought to you by Parenting Jamaica, a program of the I Believe initiative.
I say yeah, say cheese. Say cheese and keep on smiling. Oh, say cheese. Say cheese and keep on smiling. So much joy you bring everywhere you gonna, people have to smile. Say cheese, say cheese. I just love you bring everywhere you gonna, people have to smile.
We are all champions. Stay strong, Jamaica. Happy Cheese Month from Tasty Cheese.
And that's it.
How you know your way around the computer, so?
Look like a pro, not true. And I learned these skills for free through the Flow Foundation.
How will you assess?
Start up the Skills for the Future program that's in partnership with the Caribbean School of Data. Their basic digital skills course opened a world of opportunities for me.
Is it still available?
Yeah, man, and you can learn in no time.
Take control of your future for free. Register online at flowfoundationja.org.
H&L Ultimate Touch Promotions Limited invites you to celebrate with us during our 12% 12 for 12 Bliss discount and anniversary sale ending October 30. Visit 31st Studio 1 Boulevard Crossroads or call 876-754-7825-6. H&L Ultimate Touch Promotions Limited. We take printing to your door.
Be a forward! is where you going?
What you mean? Me get my vaccine so me can touch the road now.
Touch road? You know your ears hard. The health people said this is only the first dose, and we need 2 doses to be fully protected.
Eh? What you mean?
What me mean? We're waiting for the second dose, Mr. Sir. So you try tan your yard and go and follow the protocols. Wear your mask, wash your hand, and keep your distance from other people.
Get vaccinated, get back to life. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling
St. Mary, yes, where we come from. Oh, yes, it's your week in the I Love Summer campaign. So this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive 1 to 5, August 24th. Stick around for a great show. Inspirational stories and music. Join us for 2 o'clock with For a Blast. At 2:15 inside the evidence, we hear the conversion testimony of Apostle Richard Gordon, who got involved with guns and gangs at a tender age. But today he has been delivered and is sold out for Jesus. Then at 3 p.m., we go beyond the pulpit of Pastor Keena Hamilton, who's been preaching since the age of 9. He's the Assistant Dean of Discipline at the Nottable High School and Associate Pastor at the New Covenant Ministries International in St. Mary. All this and more will come alive with the family station, Love 101.
Eat what you grow what you eat.
Banana bread, banana milkshake, banana chips, banana, and more bananas from its main production source, St. Mary. Tune in this Tuesday inside From the Farmer's Mouth as we catch up with a banana farmer from the parish of, you heard, St. Mary. This Tuesday, August 24 at 5:30 p.m., we'll chat with Stephen Amrit, commercial banana farmer for over 10 years. We'll talk up all things banana and more. From the Farmer's Mouth, this Tuesday, August 24, right here on the family station, Love 101.
Just a lot of losses, spend money and I make it back. No.
Yes, welcome back. We're going to go to our WhatsApp and Facebook and YouTube. So on WhatsApp, here is the first comment. The topic, forgive and forgetting. We use the word of God to prove that this is possible. We must forgive so we will be forgiven. St. Matthew 6:14-15. Secondly, forgetting have to do with flushing one's system of the bad done through repetition. St. Matthew 18:21-22. Peter asked, how much time shall I forgive? 7 times. Jesus answered, until 70 times 7. I forgive will flush oneself. That's one person's comment on WhatsApp. Now going to Facebook, Tisha says, morning everyone. Greetings. I like your topic. I always wonder about it too. If someone hurts me, even though I have been hurt many times, but it takes the God in me that I serve to forgive. But I don't think I can forget. No. Dale says, saying I'm sorry, so hard for many spouses or parents to do, and the pain persists. Dale also says, forgetting is easy for someone who is repentant, not for wicked persons who still a clear and present danger, who has not been held accountable. So I guess what Dale is trying to say there is wisdom. Hyacinth Campbell sends in her message to add to the list. She says, I'd like to forget something. What do I do to achieve this? Which button do I touch? Only God can delete this. We remember things because we are built to remember. So I think although we forgive, forgetting is not possible unless God enables us or until we have Alzheimer's or die. Wow. Okay, we do have a voice note in studio. All right.
My challenge
So,
is
okay.
forgetting. I might forget about what you have done. I've forgiven you and I might have forgotten about it when you're within your absence. But once I see you, I come in contact with you, I keep remembering everything that you have done for me. So that you have done to me. So that is my challenge, forgetting.
And let's bring back in our guests, Carrie and Reverend Black. Carrie Heron. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's easy for me because my life, for me, is a lifestyle that is very easy to forgive, and for me, it's almost very easy to push things to the side. Where my wife almost says to me, "You need to stop forgetting things because then you won't talk about it." Carrie, this topic now, pushing beyond the forgiving. You've touched on it several times today. So you're saying it's not really possible. Let's talk about somebody who's been abused. Mhm. Let's talk about that person. Should they forget?
This is one of the things that brought that when that person was making that voice note, it came to me that the blocking and also the one of the comments about pushing a button. I cannot push a button for it to and it disappears. Actually, what happens is that when people are abused, like traumatic abuse, people tend to, the mind has a way of locking it off sometimes to preserve, and there is forgetting, and that itself is a problem because then you are dissociated from that part is not associated with, and then you find that sometimes there might be a trigger and then you will be drawn back to that state because that was unprocessed. So if you were hurt at a certain age, you can go smack dab into that moment at any time. I find that once we actually get to the point of forgiving and processing, Dr. Reverend spoke about that. Reverend Black spoke about processing all of those things earlier. When you start to process it, you're able now to talk about it. And in talking about it, it when it's can I tell you something? I've always seen revelations. They who overcame by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. The testimony is important. Regardless of what it is that has happened in our lives, our testimony of it is important to see God's grace throughout it. So even if I had a major infringement, I was abused by somebody, I still have a right to share that story. And when I cannot access one because I don't even remember it at all, it's completely locked off to me. So I can't access it, I can't remember it, I can't process it, and then I can't share it because I can come through that situation as an overcomer by the grace of God. And then in the process of all of that, when I'm able now to tell that story, I bear witness of God's grace and God's deliverance in my own telling of my story. So this is how people will go through hardships and major adversities and come back and share. And people are like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so inspired. I'm so touched." If you could go through that, then something about you telling your story unlocks a place that may be locked off in another person's heart to tell. So the blocking, where in terms of forgetting completely, no. What I think is important is a neutralization of it. So it's no longer acidic. It's no longer caustic. It just is what it is. And so you can look at the person who has infringed you with more compassion and see their pain and see that, but with the wisdom still of knowing that boundaries still need to be drawn. So I can pray for you. I can pray for your healing, for your deliverance, for you to come through, because had you done that, then something in you must be really have been broken. And then the God who lives in my heart recognizes that there's a space that he wants in yours. And if I can pray for that, then that's not a bad thing.
As I hear you speak, I want to add a point that just came into my spirit, because there are people out there who are dealing with the issues, and um, they struggle with forgiveness. They try to forgive, and then the person, as Rev says earlier, does not want to be forgiven or doesn't care about forgiveness. You know, a lot of the people that are having these issues really need to stop to be able to deal with one thing that many of us forget. Let's use the Jamaican saying, there are two sides to a story. Oftentimes, oftentimes we're not aware of what caused the person to do what they do, Rev. Sometimes we're not aware of how they got to that space. We get angry, we struggle with forgiveness, but the essence of communication between you and that person, even before the point of forgiveness, can lead to the overall healing that I'm trying to encourage people to get today. I told Rev earlier I want to bring him in to talk about marriages and relationships, because that is one of the areas where we find you're living together, you're sleeping together, but you're not communicating. Somebody does something, somebody gets hurt, you're not forgiving, and then somebody turns around and gets boisterous, and you can't forget. But in the end, sometimes the communication would have made a difference. Reverend Black, help us.
Yeah, it's a very important point you're raising because we tend to hide behind saying, I forgive you, and I'm leaving it at the cross, and all these nice Christian things we tend to do and say without really dealing with the issue. So I forgive you, um, but me now forget it. No, that's not healthy. It is the other kind of forgiveness that we're aiming at, where I forgive you, I won't forget it, but I remain healthy. And should I see you, I should be able to offer you a glass of water. If that is not happening, then we really have not forgiven. And that's where God wants to take us to. That's the point I think you're going to see, that it is the healing and the restoration of relationships along the way. The sad truth, though, is that in many of our marriages, too many of our marriages, is two people living together who really don't know each other, who are not spending the time to invest in knowing each other enough to know that here is my partner's strengths and weaknesses, here are my partner's dispositions and proclivities, and how to be sensitive and aware in the process of living through that relationship in a healthy and meaningful way. People are going to fail. Hard words are going to be exchanged. Even more difficult things are going to happen. Trust will be lost. And the fact that I say that I forgive you does not mean that I am removing from you your responsibility to make things right. The fact that I say that I forgive you does not mean that you should not face the consequences of the choices that you have made. And sometimes people get lost in that kind of narrative, supposing that because the extension of forgiveness has been made means that somehow I am agreeing with what you have done. I am approving of what you have done, when nothing could be farther from the truth. Because the act of offering forgiveness is more about the person offering than the person receiving. And this is an important distinction we need to make. So the person still needs to be held accountable. The person still needs to repent. The person still needs to make restitution. The person still needs to work through the issues that have brought them to that place of hurt and failure. So forgiveness is by no stretch of the imagination saying to the person, all right, because I forgive you, you can come and hurt me that way again. That's not the point of forgiveness at all. And we have to do a kind of rethink in our church, because very often we also hear it from the pulpit. Then if you forgive the man, why you have him off? And some other things that some of our pastors will do and say. how you can withhold from the man if you forgive him, kind of a thing, without understanding the deeper issues running in that relationship that has brought to that place where a sister may well be willing to forgive but not ready to give herself in that way. And there needs to be a process in which there is that conversation you talked about, that communication about how do we resolve these issues so that the relationship can be headed in a direction of healing and restoration and perhaps strengthening for another space.
I have a tough question. Does God hold us accountable for a lack of forgiveness in marriage? Mm.
Yes, man, he does. He holds us accountable. And we have to understand that that's the nature of the God we serve. He does hold us accountable. And we read a text in Hebrews that says, if your son, please understand that sonship is going to involve some disciplining. Those of us who teach are going to be treated with a strictness. And we have all of those texts and so on that clearly shows that God demands accountability in how we relate with each other and in how we relate to him. We are going to have to give an account, and so we don't take it lightly at all. It's a fundamental importance that we appreciate that component. Forgiveness does not obviate the necessity of accountability.
Well, okay, we're gonna go to a break. We do have several messages coming in on Facebook. Dale says, saying I'm sorry, so hard for so many spouses to do,
Yes.
and the pain persists. I'm sorry. Wow, powerful words.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find some more here. Hyacinth says, I would like to forget something, but do I do this to achieve? What do I do to achieve this? Which button do I touch? Only God can delete this. We remember things because we are built to remember. So I think although we forgive, forgetting is not possible unless God enables us. Well, I gave this one earlier. Shoshana speaks, but let me see. Junie says, forget for human beings is our mental and emotional health when we remember. There's several other comments. There says accountability. Hyacinth Campbell. Okay, so I've mentioned all of these already. So we're going to go to a break and come back. And I've got a question that I'm going to throw to my guests about forgetting. And I'm going to encourage you to call in if you want to talk about some issues you may have. 968-8327, 968-8328. We want to talk with you. We want to hear from you. And that question I'm going to ask after the break is very simple. Are there benefits to not forgetting? We'll be right back.
The I Love Summer Tour is approaching the 11th stop on the journey across Jamaica and Portland. It's your turn. We kick things off this Sunday, August 29, with a worship service at the Gideon Chapel in Buff Bay with host Pastor Edward Walsh and speaker Pastor Michael Bunzi. And of course, the Love 101 FM team with our very own youth ambassador, Shavoni Blair, will be on board. It's another I Love Summer Parish Church service this Sunday, August 29, at the Gideon Chapel in Buff Bay. The service will be carried on the Love FM social media pages and on our FM radio frequencies at 11 a.m. Portland, are you ready to come into your blessing? You can't afford to miss it. I Love Summer. It's time to explore.
I've got love in my heart and I'm feeling
St. Mary, yes, where we come from. Oh, yes, it's your week in the I Love Summer campaign. So this Testimony Tuesday inside the Live 1 to 5, August 24th. Stick around for a great show. Inspirational stories and music. Join us at 2 o'clock with Pro Blast. At 2:15 inside the evidence, we hear the conversion testimony of Apostle Richard Gordon, who got involved with guns and gangs at a tender age but today he has been delivered and is sold out for Jesus. Then at 3 p.m., we go beyond the pulpit of Pastor Keena Hamilton, who's been preaching since the age of 9. He's the Assistant Dean of Discipline at the Notre Bay High School and Associate Pastor at the New Covenant Ministries International in St. Mary. All this and more will come alive with the family station, Love 101.
Seniors, the first payment under the new social pension program will be paid on July 22. If you qualify for a benefit and submitted a completed application before June 30, your payment can be collected beginning July 22. Check your text messages to confirm your payment arrangements. For further information, call 876-922-8007 or check the ministry's website, mlss.gov.jm. The Social Pension Program, caring for our elderly. A message from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
We're at the next stop of the I Love Summer Tour,
Saint
Mary. Saint Mary.
Welcome back. Yes, this is The Rock. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Blair, and we are talking about forgiving and forgetting. So far, we've come to a consensus that it's pretty impossible to forget. Some of us may be like me, where I don't think it's a an effort to forget, but it's just a forgetful thing. But I do have a question I want to pose to my guest because I was thinking about it. Is there a benefit to forgetting? You're forgiving. Is there a benefit to not forgetting? So let's bring up that topic, and also want to encourage you to make that phone call, 968-8327, 968-8328, so that we can have a chat with you about forgiving and forgetting. Angela says on Facebook, I will forgive with the help of God. However, I try to forget. It's not working at all. And Angela, it's not going to be easy. Dale says, I believe it's the primary responsibility of the person who's been forgiven to make the forgetting process a possible reality. That's a possibility, but as we've said, Dale, sometimes they don't really care about being forgiven. The forgiver should not be the one holding the heavy end on this. If I'm suffering from the leg you broke, that's an impossible ask. He says, I am JS. I don't know what that means. Remembering and forgiving takes much strength and grace. Jermaine says, let it go first, and the memories of it will take time to go away from you. So you've got to do your part to let go. And that's why I have been encouraging throughout the program, get help if necessary, because forgiving is one thing, but the pain that's still there, the hurt that impacts your attitude and your behavior, all of those things are there. So get some help. And Ricardo says we can forgive and forget when we pray for the person, even when we remember it does pain the heart. Finally, Dale, who's been very involved today, says people make you remember because of their nasty, persistent attitude. So let's bring back in our guest. And let me ask you that question. Is it helpful? Are there any benefits from
Sorry, we
not...
have a caller on the line.
We have a caller. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Not sir, Miss Mervis.
Oh, my dear, I'm sorry. Hello to you.
Good morning
Strong
to you
voice
and your
today.
guests and all the listeners.
Yes, ma'am.
Listening to the topic carefully. And I asked God some serious question down the road about that forgetting business.
What did he say to you?
Well, The whole idea is him start to show me how my brain set up. The fact is that your brain come in like some files in it, like the computer. The computer was made after the brain. And it have files. Just like him show me, so when you go to school and you go to the geography class, the geography file come up.
Yes.
You go to the maths class, the maths file come up. Very funny. And him said, when things happen, it's like they're in files. And it's not that you forget them, but it's like you have a lot of files packed up in a place, and based on how you deal with them, some get into the back page, into the back, and some up front, occupy the space. Somewhere down the road, a simple word is said to you, and that long time, just a word you hear, and that thing comes straight up back. So this matter of forgetting is not something that is humanly possible. No? It takes God and the Holy Spirit and something else to not forget it, to put it in, file it somewhere, leave it somewhere. That is how I'm sure to me. Because then when you go in the Bible, you see where him tell Israel, so you provoke me these 10 times. Huh? And many times they remind them how him bring them out of Egypt and all of what him do for them, and them still a sin. See? So fighting to forget in a certain way can be more stressful than anything. I have been through a lot of hell and powder house from people who God sent me to do a lot of good to. And you forget about them, and all of a sudden, them do something else and bring up back the whole thing. The same people where God sent you to help out of some dire situation are the same one who turn to trying to destroy your integrity, which is very important. So this whole matter that sometimes I have to turn and say, Father God, a spirit run this show, and my flesh can't manage this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, me I tell him it plain, Mr. Father, this thing needs the spirit to manage it. My flesh cannot manage this, so please do something about it, because salvation is not about us. Salvation is about God, because without God we can't live righteous. No. We can't live righteous. The fruit of the Spirit is, and recently I've been basing on these things, the fruit of the Spirit, where the Spirit bear long suffering, whatever. Mr. Father, over to the Spirit, me can't manage this. You get to a place where you just tell God the truth, you know what I mean? And
Correct.
somehow him have a way of doing it in like a switch, you know what I mean? When you flick a switch and the light come on and go off. Somehow when you get to the point of realizing you can't manage this thing and place it clearly before him give you a sort of power to, the thing is there, but it is like it's not affecting you that much. So that is what I like to tell my fellow brethren. There are times you get to some place where something you can't manage, you just can't manage them. Not psychologists and not sociologists can't give you a tip to manage them. You just have to put them before the King of Kings and tell him plain and straight, say, you can't manage them.
Because but he's going to respond to you. Huh? And oftentimes he's going to respond to you, and he's going to give you some homework.
All the time.
Right. And when he responds and gives you the homework, he's going to put demands.
Different ways.
Yes.
That is not a stereotype, God, where sometimes God sends us to do something and we just turn it in a tradition, Pastor. Sometimes I just that one occasion anyway you use it for,
Yes.
And we turn it in a tradition. And that's why I'm saying to myself, 4 cases might come to me for counseling. And the 4 of them look alike, but the 4 of them have different roots. That is what counseling requires a lot of the Spirit of God. Because you can't see deep down in a people. You don't know what the real hurt is. Only the Spirit of God himself knows what the real hurt is and where to drop the antidote. Me no business with nobody, and it come to me, a spirit to man. Me a little education answer, but me no bother bank on that, because the devil, one thing we forget, that the devil is at work, Pastor. The devil influence, and then the devil come up, me say, but no, me have to argue with the devil, me say, but no, you influence that thing. Why you keep bringing up this thing for me hate the person? Me say, you influence it. So me I take on you. You get what I mean?
Thank you. Thank you as always, though, because That's a very important point you just made. And it leads me to add another one of my points. I remember preaching 15 years ago on deliverance, and I said the number one step to getting your deliverance is to acknowledge where you are. And oftentimes people don't acknowledge exactly where they are, and so they can't get help. They won't get counseling, won't help them. Laying on of hands won't help them because the acknowledgement needs to be done.
Spirit of God, man. God know exactly what is there.
Yes.
You and I don't know. God know the devil. Remember, I said we can't leave out the devil out of this thing, you know. We can't leave out the satanic kingdom and the devil working. So that
No,
is
he
the one
comes to
time.
steal, kill, and destroy.
One time I study him well. God said I study him well, but me not study the enemy. And if you not study the enemy, we floor you. You need to study things like how countries have them secret here.
Okay, ma'am. Gotta thank you for the call and move on because our guests are there.
Okay.
But thank you as always. The call from St. Mary as always. We do have a few
Good
voice
morning.
notes and a few more messages
Listening
coming
to
in.
your program here, interesting topic. The word of God says forgive 70 times 7. Jesus forgive those who crucify him, and Paul says we are to be imitators of Christ. Joseph also forgive his brothers. He didn't remind them what they done him. That is what we ought to do. We need to forgive so our Heavenly Father will forgive us. But at times we are so hurt, down, we just can't forgive. Not really saying it to the person over and over, but sometimes it stays there. And I wondered if our sins are forgiven. You know, so many persons out there hurting each other, not talking to each other because of the past things that done many, many years ago.
Good morning, Pastor Blair amongst your guests. Very interesting topic, forgiving and forgetting. So here my little view on this topic. Yes, forgiveness is a must. The Bible clearly tells you that if you don't forgive your brothers and sisters, then your Heavenly Father will not forgive you. So forgiving is a must. I'm not going to say it's easy, you know, trust me, because I have experiences and, you know, it wasn't easy, but I had to learn to forgive. Because if I not forgive, I'll never see God face. And all God will forgive me when he messed up. You know, but forgetting, I don't think that's possible. The only case you'll have to forget what someone has done to you if you know you're making some form of accident or have some form of amnesia or something. But forgetting is not possible. But you have to learn to forgive. That's the only way you can move on, and that's the only way, you know, God will forgive you. And you know, yeah, I just said it. That's my little view.
To my guest, I throw something at you. Can I play with the word forget and say that it does not mean forget? Can I imply that through the life of Joseph, that Joseph did not forget what his brothers did, but he forgot their sin in forgiving them and was able to love them? I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from.
There's a question that you asked before that, and where it was.
Is forgiveness?
Is there ever a time where it is wise not to forget?
Right.
The benefits
I really want to answer that question because it, especially for people who are in very abusive situations, what often happens is that you may have somebody who is forgiving 40 times 7, 70 times 7, you're forgiving, and an abuser can take advantage of that forgiveness that comes quite easily to that person who is forgiving by nature. So this infringement happens, this abuse happens, and you forgive. The person who is the abuser will, you know, continue to do, and you forgive, and you forgive, and you forgive, and you forgive, and you forgive. And so in that situation, the person who's forgiving is forgetting that every time I've forgiven, every time it's not necessarily forgiveness, but every time I've given this person the space, the same space to occupy in my life that I gave them the last time, then this abuse has happened. And you keep on forgetting it, hoping that this time will be different when nothing has changed within the person who is causing the abuse. And so It's like this cycle of abuse and forgiving. Abuse. I kept on forgiving. You hear a lot of people in these relationships. You have one person who's very forgiving and one person who doesn't need forgiveness because they don't feel like they've done anything and doesn't care about even if they say sorry because they want you to forgive, they don't really mean it and they don't plan to change, or even if they think they plan to change, they don't ever actually put the work in to change. So if it is that you are in an abusive situation where people are really abusing boundaries, they're causing harm to you, physically, psychologically, to your children, and so on, to your property, then you must not forget what happened the last time. Yes, forgive, but wisdom means that you have to put up stronger boundaries in order to protect property, protect life, protect sanity. Doesn't mean that you're not gonna forget. You're gonna not forgive. But
Let's pull in Pastor Black because he's itching to go here.
Yes,
Pastor
I
Black,
am. I
she's
am.
brought up a very important point.
Because you see, we keep on supposing that because we have forgiven mean that he mustn't go to prison. I have forgiven him, but he is to go to prison for what he did. We suppose that because we have forgiven, it means that the person is being let off. Forgiveness is not letting off the person from the consequences of their actions. They're two different things. Forgiveness is about myself, my emotional health, my spiritual health. The consequences of what that person has done still will need to have to be processed and dealt with. And the fact that I have forgiven that person don't mean that that person has a right in my space because I have forgiven that person. It may well require that that person need to take themselves away for a good 2-3 years and give me the space to process my hurt, my feeling, until I'm in a safe enough space for both of us to continue our relationship. And we keep on doing it as Christians. Let's break out of the notion of supposing that because I have forgiven you, we must be sitting together. It doesn't work like that at all. And I think the sooner we recognize the distinction between the two, it'll help us to have, again, that word, more authentic relationships. Forgiveness is not carte blanche permission to come back, to continue, to repeat, to reinforce patterns and all of that. It is
But what do you do when the person's just doing the same thing over and over, and you say, "Well, I've forgiven them," and they do it over and over and over?
But that's what I'm saying, Steve.
Yeah,
That person has no business in your space because the
excellent.
fact that
Don't preach it up, Rev. Don't preach it up.
clap, 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 clap,
We
clap,
have
clap,
a
clap,
phone
standing
call.
applause.
Okay.
We have a phone call. Let's pull in this caller. Hello.
Yes, Andera, good morning to all of you. I am listening and you're talking about forgiveness. I believe in forgiveness, but I don't believe in forgetting. No, reason is I remember I forget some things that someone did to me, and the person came back and did it again. I believe when you forget these things, you are vulnerable to those predators. However, when you remember them and have no hostility, it tells me that you let it go. It's forgotten. Yes, in an emotional way, but not forgotten from your mind. Because people are so terrible. They once you forgive them and you move on and forget about it, if you lay yourself vulnerable, they will do it again and again. So God say use wisdom. Maybe
All right, we have a caller on the line.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Thank
caller.
you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, my first time on your program.
Wow. Welcome.
My name is Stafford. I always listen to your program until the first time I really caught. A very
Yes, sir.
important and very interesting topic. The forgiveness that Jesus was speaking about is the heart. It's the heart. Jesus is saying, forgive in the heart. When your heart forgives someone, you really let go. But it will always come back to your mind. But the mind will always be to the other things, because things of the past, things of the present, things of the future. So the devil will always bring back things to your mind. But you already forgive in your heart and you let it go. And God see and know that you let it go. Because God look at the heart and God judge you from the heart, not the mind, and not the physical person, but the heart. That's where God judge. And once you forgive someone from your heart, you are forgiven. The person is forgiven. And it's very important to let go, because you benefit from it. Both you and the person benefit. Because when you let go, you have released yourself. Because it can burden you down. Holding somebody in your heart, it can burn it down. It's like cancer in the bone.
Yes, sir.
Give you chest pain, stomach pain, all kind of pain.
So you say the lack of forgiveness can make you ill.
Yes.
Thank you for your call.
God bless.
Yes, we're getting so many messages in. We've been getting notes from Agnola Martin in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. Welcome. Thank you for joining the program via Facebook. And a special good morning to our listeners in Boston and New York and Atlanta and Miami and the United Kingdom. Yes, this is Love 101, The Rock. And I think we are getting another phone call coming in. I do have two questions I want to ask my guests. Is that person on the call, Nadine?
Yes, he's on.
Good morning.
Pastor Blair?
Yes, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very well, sir. I'm delighted to be on the program again. Very interesting topic.
Well, I would like to hear from you.
Oh, boy. Yes,
Pastor
I would
Christopher
like to make
Kennedy.
my contribution. Yes, thank you so very much. So my contribution to this is we have to remember that we're living at a unique time in history where there has been what we call in scholarship a rediscovery of Jesus. And maybe the last 2 centuries through German scholarship, Jesus was seen through a kind of Greco-Roman perspective. But what we recognize in science is that he is a rabbinic Jew. And when we understand Jesus from that perspective, we realize that we have to relearn who he really is. Now, let me talk about the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and that passage where the verse in question comes from, this idea of forgiveness. Because when a Jewish rabbi speaks, he speaks in more concrete terms. He would say things like, if your right hand offend you, cut it off and cast it away. People have long recognized that when we talk about, say, the Sermon on the Mount, what Jesus has done is that he has taken law. He has revised God's law, Father's law, and he has put it at a level where we can't now say that we achieve. And there's a wonderful statement I hear people constantly making, and I love it, where they say, things are not a destination. For example, things like my accomplishments are not about my destination. My healing is not about the destination. It is really a journey. Education is a journey. And I think that is bang square with how we understand rabbinic teaching. Jesus is talking about an attitude and a journey of forgiveness. So when it says that you forget what people have done, put God forgets their sins and puts them in, separate them as far as the east is from the west and buries them in the sea and shall hit them no more. We have to understand it from that perspective. So it's within the perspective of our goals and our aspirations. And so you find yourself not wanting to forgive, then the exaltation begins to put you under scrutiny. You have to desire to be on that road of forgiveness, that road of recovery, that road of increasing strength, becoming more like God in the way that you respond to other people. And so we need to see it as a journey, I think, Pastor Blair, a journey, not a destination. We always need to be learning to give more, to love more, to be more submissive to God, to want to becoming more like Him. In the words of that wonderful hymn, draw me nearer, 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 blessed Lord, the cross where the past time. I think that's the concept here. Goal, aspiration, attitude.
Thank you so much. I know you've taken the time each week to write in, and thank you for the call today. Nice to have you on, and I'm sure we'll have you on as a guest again very soon.
Great. Thanks so much, Pastor.
We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we will read your messages on WhatsApp, Facebook, and YouTube. Yes. And we'll wrap up with our guests to hear what they have to say. I'm still going to ask that question. Is there a benefit in not forgetting? I know Reverend is looking to answer that question, so we'll be right back.
St. Mary, yes, where we come from. Oh, yes, it's your week in the I Love Summer campaign. So this Testimony Tuesday inside Alive 1 to 5, August 24. Stick around for a great show. Inspirational stories and music. Join us at 2 o'clock with For a Blast. At 2:15 inside the evidence, we hear the conversion testimony of Apostle Richard Gordon, who got involved with guns and gangs at a tender age, but today he has been delivered and is sold out for Jesus. Then at 3 p.m., we go beyond the pulpit of Pastor Keena Hamilton, who's been preaching since the age of 9. He's the Assistant Dean of Discipline at the Anoka Bay High School and Associate Pastor at the New Covenant Ministries International in St. Mary. All this and more will come alive with the family station, Love 101.
Eat what you grow what you eat.
Banana bread, banana milkshake, banana chips, banana, and more bananas from its main production source, St. Mary. Tune in this Tuesday inside From the Farmer's Mouth as we catch up with a banana farmer from the parish of, you heard, St. Mary. This Tuesday, August 24 at 5:30 p.m., we'll chat with Stephen Amrit, commercial banana farmer for over 10 years. We'll talk up all things banana and more. From the Farmer's Mouth, this Tuesday, August 24, right here on the family station, Love 101.
Just a lot of losses, spend money and I make it back. No.
Welcome back. So many people are writing in, and I thank you for your participation in the program today. Jermaine on Facebook says, real forgiving is forgetting, although the forgetting process takes time. There are other comments. Hyacinth says, those who really forgive are just being obedient to the God of our salvation. Those who can't forgive have not yet received the grace to forgive. Wow. Earlier, just before that, Dale said, I love this caller. It was talking about our call from St. Mary that we get every week. There are trigger words and actions that brings these offenses to the front page. Very important point. The triggers that come into our lives. And that's why I talked about the communication. Say to the person, I don't like when you say this. I don't like how you say that. Communicate. It really helps to change situations. Quite a few messages are here. Hyacinth Campbell Daly, those who really forgive are just being obedient. Donna Morris says, I have 9 children for one man. I was abused in and out of pregnancy, ended in hospital twice because of those licks. I'm so ashamed doing this, but have to do it with tears running down my face. But I was able to tell this man that I forgive him, Pastor. It's hard to forget. Forgetting isn't easy. There's times I remember what I've been through. I cry or bawl. Oh, gosh, I want to pray for you too before we end the program today, Donna. She says, sometimes I ask myself if I really been through that. It's unbelievable. I'm heartbroken. Hyson Campbell Daly says, yes, there are benefits in not forgetting. And that's the question I'm going to go to Rev with in just a second. We are told in Scripture to remember various things in order to receive the blessings, not where God has taken us from, etc. Tavia says, this topic is so critical. I recently found a YouTube video that speaks nicely to this topic, and she gives the YouTube channel. And Agnola from the Virgin Islands says, probably the benefit is that you avoid yourself being hurt again by that person. And that's one of the benefits. You learn, as Rev said earlier, and our other guest said, that you have to be careful being around the person all the time and not expecting them to do the same thing. So there are benefits in not forgetting. The benefit is that you avoid yourself being hurt again by that person. Tavia says the matter of forgiveness ain't easy. Let's get ready to bring our guest back in. Elsie, who's with us every week, goes to the biblical words. If we don't forgive others, God will not forgive us. Love this topic. Definitely have to come back with a part two, because I find forgiveness. I talked at the start about the children who have not forgiven the father who's not been there, or the persons who have abused them. Tavia says, I'm interested in hearing someone tell me how they demonstrate forgiveness. Rev and Miss Heron, we have the story of Joseph. But let's go back to the question. Let's forget about Joseph for a second. Rev, answer that question that I know you've been itching to answer. Are there benefits in not forgiving?
Yes, there are. Again, I do not take the view at all that the Bible teaches that you should forget it. I don't think so. I think it's important to see those places of hurt for what they are. Opportunities to affirm our humanness, opportunities to recognize that in us, all of us, is that disposition to be wicked. The heart is, in fact, desperately wicked. And that is why the call to forgiveness becomes even more important. We are going to wound each other, hurt each, and human history, the scriptures are just replete with those instances. So we don't hide our feelings. We don't hide the wrongs. We don't hide those things. We recognize them. And that's a part of moving forward, just accepting the fact that the thing happened. So that's one of the benefits of just accepting it for what it is. Secondly, we're also going to learn patterns of behavior from those things. So we see a pattern of behavior because we are remembering what has happened. So learning the patterns are also very, very important. Learning whether or not this person is in fact a safe person is also another important lesson when we remember what is happening. I would just put maybe one rider here that we are not remembering with malice, we're not remembering with bitterness, we're not remembering to get back at, we're not remembering to hold out on and any of those things. But we are remembering for those healthy reasons that keep us focused, that keep us connected, that keep us emotionally balanced. When we deny those things, we are denying who we are. When we deny those things, we are denying the very idea of us being in process in our own healing experience. When we're denying those things, we pretend. And one of the nastiest things about us about as Christians is this disposition to pretend about stuff. We need to break it and we need to step back into reality as it is, as God intended.
All right. Thank you, Rev. We got 3.5 minutes. I'm going to give Carrie a minute to just release her heart to the nation before we close.
Adding on to what Pastor Black just said, when you find yourself forgiveness, for, forgetting is I agree with everything that he just said. The other thing is sometimes when we forget, we also find yourself in the same relationship with different people. So you're having the same relationship, the same dysfunction, the same toxicity, but replicated in different relationships all over and over again because we have not applied wisdom to the information that would have presented in those relationships that we should have taken that wisdom from. And for lastly, in terms of what forgiveness means to me, forgiveness allows me to protect my heart. It allows me to guard my heart so that it is receptive to God. Um, my relationship with God is the most important thing for me. And if I have hold unforgiveness in my heart, it is when my heart becomes stony, when it becomes impenetrable to God. And that is the issue for me, greater than other people, is how am I relating to God? And if there is something, if there's a block anywhere in this chain here, then at some point I have to say, Lord, whatever you need to do, take it. Take it. Because me and you, we've got a thing that's greater than what anybody else can do here, and that's important to me. My heart has to be open to you. And I don't want to hold a heart that is jaded and black and dark. I want when you see me smile, you see the grace of God on my face because the grace of God shines powerfully in my heart and it's coming out of the wellspring of my heart.
All
And
right.
that
Thank you so
comes
much.
through constantly putting myself through that.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Pastor Black. Thank you, Carrie Heron. We have so much more to talk about. Maybe we'll do a part two because healing is needed. Somebody writes, Good morning, The Rock. What if the hurting person says he or she doesn't forgive, that they forgive the offender, but strongly refuses to talk to him or her? I have strong feelings on that. I've got to talk about that next week because there's power in forgiveness, not just for you, but also for the offender. Ah, and finally, another person says, Forgiving and forgetting means that after you have forgiven a person, you will not allow the offense to keep you from relating to the offender. Yes, you may have to set new boundaries or even remove yourself or the offender for your safety. Gosh, Lord, we just pray for all those that need help today, all those that struggle with forgiveness, all those who are hurting, that mother of nine, all those who've been going through so much abuse. We just ask for your peace and for your strength. And we ask that we've been able to help and that we will even be able to help more next week as we continue on forgiveness. Thank you for your grace in Jesus' name. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Rock. I'm Pastor Steve Blair. Our guest, Carrie Heron, Napoleon Black, the Reverend, the pastor of Malines Road. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to Kathy. Thanks to Nadine. Kathy is our producer. And thank you from all over the world for participating on this program. It's called The Rock. We love you. See you next week.